Expand your mind and enrich your world. It's time for another outstanding podcast from ICRT.
Hello and welcome to another podcast edition of Taiwan Talk. I'm Keith Manconi. We are coming up on the 400th anniversary of the death of world-renowned English playwright and poet William Shakespeare. So English literature buffs from around the world are gearing up for a variety of commemorative events. And Tainan is getting in on the action as well. The National Museum of Taiwan Literature in Tainan is right in the middle of a 3-month exhibition they're calling All the World's a Stage, Shakespeare in Taiwan. The event is featuring a wide array of Shakespeare artifacts, along with interviews from Shakespeare artists and scholars. To tell us about the event, we're joined today by one of the researchers with the museum, Zhang Hongyi. I started off our conversation by asking what they're trying to show the public with this exhibition.
我们有2个目的，一个是明年是莎士比亚的400周年的逝世哈。
Next year is the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. We want to use this opportunity to introduce Shakespeare to Taiwan's audience.
那第二个是 Shakespeare 在台湾不只是一个英国作家，他也是一个台湾所熟悉的剧作家或者是一个诗人。
In Taiwan, Shakespeare is not just a British writer, he's also a playwright and a poet that's familiar to Taiwanese people. We want to introduce people to what Shakespeare is in Taiwan, what he's like being read and interpreted by Taiwanese.
So at this museum exhibition, there are, of course, a lot of Shakespeare artifacts on display. Here's a couple that caught my eye. You're going to have a selection of Shakespeare's early works, including some French volumes published in the 18th century. You're also going to have an edition of Shakespeare's works published in 1709. This is interesting. These are considered the first modern edition of Shakespeare's plays. So very about as early of a run as you can get. So definitely going to give us a sense of some of the history there. Now, all this stuff, you research this area. This is your area of expertise. So could you share with us what's something that you're particularly excited about putting on display?
我个人最喜欢的东西是展场里面有一个，应该说有一组，一个是写字台，然后另外一个是它的墨水盒。
My personal favorite is a writing desk and inkwell that will be displayed at the exhibition. I'm told it's not one that Shakespeare actually used, but it's similar to what would be used in that era for writing.
那看起来是一个很普通的一个斜面的木桌子，小小的，然后旁边还有一个墨水盒，是可以沾墨水来使用。
It's just a small plain desk with a slanted surface and a small inkwell with a quill stuck in it. This helps us understand how people in England wrote 400 years ago, sitting at a desk, dipping their quill into the inkwell.
写东西的时候是在这样子一个小小的桌子上面，然后沾着墨水，沾着那个用鹅毛笔沾着墨水这样写字。
Now, of course, growing up in school in the West, I read a lot of Shakespeare, and, when it's taught in America or Europe, the things that are really emphasized is the universal themes of Shakespeare or the language. Those are really the two draws for why Shakespeare is so really relevant for readers and audiences today. But I'm a little bit curious, in Taiwan, I mean, obviously the language, there's a bit of a barrier there. I'm not sure how much the themes of Shakespeare's plays really would speak to Taiwanese audiences. I'm just not sure. So what's your theory? What do you think there is about Shakespeare's works that a Taiwanese audience connects with?
我们的访谈里面有一位台大外文系退休的老师叫胡耀恒。 胡耀恒老师在影片里面有提到，所有的戏剧的工作者都必须认识的人，没有第二个，一定是莎士比亚。
One of the people we interviewed for this exhibition is retired NTU foreign language professor Hu Yaohen, who says in the footage that there is one person that all people who work in drama must study, and that is Shakespeare. There may be other figures in Greek mythology and literature that share common themes, but in terms of quality and fluidity, no one can deny the influence of Shakespeare on drama.
所以，第一，所有的外文系跟戏剧系的学生都必须阅读莎士比亚。
all foreign language students and drama students must study Shakespeare. His works are still widely studied, read, and performed to this day. Shakespeare and his works are also universally recognized for people who want to stage performances.
Right. So, a major theme of this event that I'm kind of picking up on from hearing what you're saying is, kind of sharing theater among countries and among cultures. Is that right? Is that something that you think is important to foster with these kinds of exhibitions and events?
应该要分享，而且比起其他的文学种类，比如说诗或者是小说，它有比较多的语言跟文化上面的隔阂。
Of course we should share theater, because compared with other literary genres such as poetry and novels, where there's more language and cultural barriers, dramas, while they still need to be translated, they're easier to understand.
我们可以在不同的国家的戏剧演出当中看到人的生活、人的思想跟人的价值。
Through theater performances in other countries, we can see and experience other people's lives, thoughts, and values. Take Shakespeare as an example. Even for those of us who don't know much about the UK's history, through Shakespeare's dialogues and the scenery, we can understand what British people were thinking and how they looked at the world 400 years ago.
那同样的，台湾的戏剧有时候也受到很多日本的影响，或者是美国的剧作的影响。
Taiwan's theater is often affected a great deal by Japanese and sometimes by American theater productions, and via these cross-cultural interactions, we can quickly find out the differences and common traits among different cultures.
因此，我认为虽然这是一个很广泛的题目，但我认为它绝对是戏剧的交流跟彼此的理解绝对是必要的，而且是一个最快速、最好的一个方式。
So although this is a topic that we can talk about for a long time, I do think that interactions via theater is not only necessary, but also the best and the fastest way to get to know each other. This is because theater is not serious and difficult to understand. Instead, it's friendly and approachable.
Once again, that was Jen Hong-yi, a researcher with the National Museum of Taiwan Literature. Now, in addition to the artifacts we discussed today, the exhibition is also taking a look at how Shakespeare's work has influenced directors, writers, and actors here in Taiwan. So up next, we're going to be speaking to one of the artists speaking at the exhibition who has actually staged Chinese language adaptations of Shakespeare's work. Po Shen Lu is the artistic director of the Tainan Ensemble. He's staged about a half dozen of Shakespeare's plays right here in Taiwan, all with Taiwanese actors and all translated into either Mandarin or Taiwanese. Just to get it started, here's a little taste of what that sounds like. This is one of his productions of Hamlet, and if you're familiar with the play, this is where Hamlet's father comes back as a ghost to tell his son of his murder.
要知道啊，好孩子，咬死你父亲的那条蛇，如今正带着他的王冠啊！
So, Director Liu is obviously a big fan of Shakespeare. He's put a lot of work into getting these plays translated and bringing them to the Taiwan stage. And just to get things started, I wanted to hear where that interest is coming from. What is it about Shakespeare's work that speaks to him?
Because I'm very much appreciate Shakespeare's description of human nature. Yeah, and I always can see human beings, or see myself more clearly from his work. And another thing is that his language, because we know that Shakespeare wrote in verse, and I think that is something we lack of in Taiwanese theater, because we always kind of realistic drama. So when I did Shakespeare, I think it's the way, it's an opportunity to train the actors to speak in verse. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that because, I mean, all these productions are translated into either Chinese or Taiwanese. So what do you mean when you say that these actors are going to be speaking in verse? Is that something that you focus on when these translations are made, is preserving some of that poetry?
Yes, I insisted. Oh, I don't want the translator to translate into modern Chinese or just we call the daily life languages. We always use poetry to do the translation.
And so how much of that do you feel like you're actually able to preserve? Do you really feel like you're able to preserve the voice of Shakespeare, or does it become something really different?
No, I think it's impossible we can preserve that kind of authenticity. It's impossible because it's different language and different context. Yeah, but it provides us an opportunity to work on verse-speaking plays. So it's totally different. Yeah.
And what kind of an experience are you hoping to bring to a Taiwanese audience in doing these works? I mean, what would be different for them about doing one of these Shakespeare plays instead of something that was written in Taiwan?
Because I can really see the kind of universal human nature in Shakespeare's plays, and I think Shakespeare is the world treasure, and in Taiwan, people seldom do Shakespeare. So I think that when I'm doing Shakespeare, I try to introduce his great work to Taiwanese audience here. That is one thing. Another thing is that I'm really interested in experiment with Chinese verse-speaking plays in Taiwan, and that is the good opportunity to train actors' skill of speaking.
Are there any plays in particular that you think are easier for a Taiwanese audience to accept, or maybe is more the themes in that play is more familiar to a Taiwanese audience?
I think they are quite familiar with Romeo and Juliet, A Midsummer Night's Dream, yeah, and maybe Macbeth, I think. Mm-hmm.
Why Macbeth?
Because several Taiwanese companies have done Macbeth before, especially in Taiwan. Like the famous one is the Contemporary Legend Theatre Company, and they did Macbeth in 1986, and it was quite successful.
And are there any particular themes in Macbeth? I mean, there's a lot of violence and there's a lot of backstabbing in Macbeth. Is it the themes that you think are appealing to Taiwanese audiences?
I think it's the kind of political ambition, the kind of human desire to grab power, grab the kind of authority. I think that is thing. I mean, Taiwanese audience can feel familiar. Yeah, because they happen everywhere, especially in the history of Taiwanese history or Chinese history.
Now, when you make these productions, do you add anything, any local elements to make them more appealing to a Taiwanese audience?
I always think that if Shakespeare is done in Taiwan and it become local, it become Taiwanese, because we always use Taiwanese actors or Taiwanese designers. And also, sometimes we use some performance elements from Taiwanese culture. Yeah, but I think that kind of sometimes we use stills, we use masks, but we can find that kind of performance elements in different performance cultures of the world. Yeah, so I won't say that it's particularly Taiwanese. Yeah, and also sometimes we use Taiwanese songs, melodies, in our Shakespearean productions.
So this exhibition on Shakespeare, one of their goals is to promote Shakespeare to modern audiences, make Taiwanese audiences a little bit more familiar with Shakespeare. When you do these productions, is that one of your goals, is to help familiarize Taiwanese audiences with Shakespeare's works?
Yes, of course, yeah. And because different theater company or different directors, they have their own different approaches to a Shakespeare play. And when the audience went to see the exhibition, they can find that kind of variety of approaches to Shakespeare plays are done by Taiwanese theater artists.
And just wrapping up, anything else you want to say to our audience?
Just encourage them to go to see the exhibitions. And in November, by the end of November, from 27th to 29th, the new work, King Lear, I work with Taiwanese Bounce Theatre, will open in National Theatre.
And that was Po Shen Lu, the artistic director of the Tainan Ensemble. To find them online, you're going to want to search tainanrenensemble.org. That's Tainan, REN, ensemble.org. And once again, the event at the National Museum of Taiwan Literature in Tainan is running through January. Check out their website for details. Real quick, before we go, there's more of that Hamlet clip, and the good people at Tainan Ren Theater says it really should be played in its entirety to get the full effect. So here it is once again, Hamlet's Dad, the Ghost.
根据宣布，我在自家花园午睡时，一条蛇咬了我。全丹麦的耳朵都听到了这跌倒的死亡报告，大大受骗啦！要知道啊，好孩子，咬死你父亲的那一条蛇，如今正戴着他的王冠啊！
I don't care what language you speak, that is unmistakably Hamlet. No missing that one. Well, that is it for the show. Thanks for listening to Taiwan Talk for today. For ICRT, I'm Keith Manconi.